Well, good morning, and I'm back out in the local forest again. First thing in the morning, beautiful morning again. I'm not expecting any sun or clouds, so it's going to be fairly flat and grey. But as usual, that's pretty much my ideal light in situations like this. Now I'm lined up for my first image, and we're talking now about sunrise, so there's a little bit of light coming up in the sky. Now it's not massively contrasty, this shot, but there is the sky in there, unlike the other week when I was out shooting. And I have a lot of deep shadows in the foreground, in the mosses. Now I haven't got a film loaded, so I'm going to have to decide now which film to load, and I'm going to do that by making some meter readings and just to see what the brightness range of this this image is. Okay, so I'm looking at probably a dynamic range of maybe 6 stops. So I'm looking for something which is possibly not as sort of wide ranging as HP5+. Now I will be moving around in the forest for the next hour, so I have to consider other shots as well. But I don't want to go for the Pan F that I went for the other day, because I think the sky is going to blow out, or sort of block up, sorry, in film terms. So today I'm going to load FP4+, which is going to give me that sort of mid-ground in terms of contrast and flexibility. Okay, now that was 8 seconds at f16. Now I'm rating the film at an exposure index of 80. So I'm giving a bit more exposure, but I'm actually going to cut back the development by about 1/3 because that sky is quite bright and it is going to block up. Now the danger is that later shots will potentially suffer by me pulling the film if they're low contrast, but this is the scene in front of me and I quite like the image, so I'm not going to risk it by exposing the film and developing it normally, which will give me too much contrast and make it very hard to print. Just one more safety shot in case you get a scratch on the film. Done. Now there is actually a little bit of rain falling, and of course I haven't brought a hat, although I have a hood. But that will mean I do need to consider where I shoot, preferably under a tree or a bit of cover, because the camera will get wet, I'll get wet, and it's never very pleasant. Now, since saying it was raining and I'd have to get under cover and find something to shoot, I've come about 25 feet and I've happened across a tree I've seen before. I was going to shoot it 2 years ago, and I don't know why I didn't, but it looks fantastic this morning, absolutely magnificent, and standard focal length will do this one, to be honest. It's quite shady, and I've got to keep that sky out of the top because that is so much brighter than the shaded areas and the not brackish, the stagnant water underneath. So yeah, let's crack the camera out, get the standard lens on, no filters, and let's get this one in the bag. You know, I think I've realised why I never took this image a couple of years ago when I was here. It's because the composition is frustratingly difficult to nail it exactly the way you want it to. If you move into the, one of the positions is here where there's a tree, and I can't stand where the tree is. This tree on the right here is also coming into the frame if I get further away. There's a little tree stump which is cutting into the bottom of the frame, and above the main tree itself, if I get too far back or tilt the camera too far up, I get bright sky coming through, and that is going to pull my eye right out the frame because the rest of it is all subtle and shady. So yes, this is why I didn't take it 2 years ago, but I'm going to persevere. I do like it. I think it's worth it. There may be a couple of compromises in there, but yeah, well, that's life, isn't it? So in terms of details, it's my standard lens, my 80mm f/16, very sharp aperture, superb lens at all apertures to be honest, but I metered around the scene and I decided that I was going to go for 8 seconds, sorry 4 seconds, darkest area being about 8 seconds. Now that is giving it a ton of exposure, however I am pulling this film, just reminding myself that I'm going to pull this film back in development. Now when you pull film back in development you need to allow more exposure, otherwise your shadows might be a bit too weak. And even though my shadows aren't going to be weak, I want them super bright. I want the ability to print all the detail in the shadows. I don't really want any black areas apart from maybe a touch of water. So although I typically prefer to shoot at the same shutter speed for both shots, I'm now going to put this one at 8 seconds, which is a load of exposure. So yeah, but I am pulling that development, so that's not a problem. Now it's always very tempting for us as landscape photographers to get frustrated at times with not being able to get to those magnificent locations. I've not been to a magnificent location for months now, but you know, this is absolutely beautiful. Now hardly anyone will make a serious effort to photograph this. Certainly not the same scenes I shoot in the way I shoot them. I'm getting unique images. And they may not be startling images or dramatic or sort of breathtaking images, but taken together they can be a beautiful set of work, which is something you can look at for years to come, and they don't get as tiring as the big iconic images or the sunsets and sunrises or the massive mountains. You know, they're a little bit different, they're a little bit quieter, they sort of whisper to you, they don't shout. Now I think it's going to be the last image of the morning. I've got things to do, need to get back home. And the weather has changed quite dramatically. It's gone bright, sunny, I've got a blue sky, and this vindicates my decision to use FP4 and pull the film in development. So I'm overexposing, underdeveloping. That will compress those highlights back down. Still got plenty of shadow detail because I'm exposing generously. Got the wide angle lens on and I am shooting a group of trees, dead trees. And I've got a beautiful sky in there. Now, I'm not sure how to play that sky. I'm not convinced it's going to work best with a coloured filter. So I've gone through a range of options. I have shot it with a polarizer, and just for demonstration and just for information, I've also shot it with orange and red, adjusting the exposure accordingly, of course. So it'll be interesting to see how that sky and how the shadows play out with the different filters, and to see which one actually works best in this situation. Right, well that's me done for another beautiful morning down the forest, and it seriously is beautiful this morning. I expected dull skies, grey, no clouds, but it's beautiful, and I've had a lovely time, and I've got my shots, and I will definitely be back. Who knows, definitely when spring turns, we get a bit of foliage in here, a bit of green, a bit of colour, I'll definitely be coming back in again. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you again soon.